Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our Brand Trust in Twitter in the South African context webinar. It's really great to see all of you guys here and joining us for this webinar. We're really great to have Erin join us from Dynamo. We're just going to be waiting a couple of minutes for the rest of the people to join us. We're expecting quite a few people to join us for this session. Clearly here to see Erin. No one really shows up to look at my ugly mug, so it's really great to have her on board. We're very excited about today's session, and we're very excited to kind of see what's happening. Elon's dropped some lovely news over the evening for us to be able to tackle as well. And so as we dive into things, I do just want to let you know that you can use the chat. Let us know that you're there. In the meantime, you can also drop a couple of emojis. Let us know that you're there as well. Feel free to use those. Use the chat. You can throw your questions in there. I'll be asking Erin some questions a bit later, so you can throw those questions up, and I may use them in the session. How's it, Mokete from Kenya? Nice, David. Nice to see you. So if you are there, and then you can use the question session to answer questions there. We have Tash in the background in the moderating panel. She'll also handle some of those sessions for us as well. So if you are around and you're there and you have questions, please fire them away. We will handle them in the background. The session is being recorded. You will be able to get a copy of it, and you will be able to share it with other people on your teams and your clients or whoever it is that you want to be able to share this with. So feel free to use it and abuse it as you go, and we'll put this content out. So I think we've waited long enough for some people, so I'm going to kick this thing off and just share a quick little introduction about who we are.
People. What remarkably extraordinary creatures we are. We can feel the full spectrum of emotions in one day. We have the potential to make things beautiful and stand strong for what we believe in. We're passionate, curious about the unknown. We evolve and reinvent ourselves. Driven by the desire to connect, we've built a digital world. The global village brought people closer together than ever before, offering a new environment to do business on. But what does it take to survive in this world? Simply put, you need to understand the person on the other side of the phone, as well as the phone itself, creating a unique middle point where people and technology meet. That's where you'll find DigitLab. Through technology, we find ways to make people's lives better and thrive on challenging what's possible. Coming from different backgrounds, our team brings fresh perspective and dynamic thinking. With us, you get a partner that's just as invested in your success as you are. Sure, you could do things the way you have been, but we've got a feeling that doesn't sit well with you, just like it doesn't sit well with us. So, let's stop calling things impossible and start making history.
So that's a bit about us, and this is the space that we find ourselves, where people and technology meet. Our work is very much around this: attract, engage, and delight customers. We focus on this whole journey. We do that with a combination of agency, consulting, and software. And the reason that we're focusing on Twitter today in this webinar is because Twitter has been able to segment and speak to customers across this platform over the years. We've been able to engage in this platform both from a point of view of being able to attract new customers to people, engage them in the sales and the marketing process on a continual basis, but then also to be able to use them in the customer service space. And that's what we always loved about social media. It's why so many of us are in the room today, and so why we like this. But since Elon Musk has taken over Twitter, there's been so many things that have taken place that has rocked the boat around trust in Twitter itself. And so there are so many questions about how brands can actually now engage. And we've seen a lot of international businesses leave and come back sheepishly, see themselves trying to make these grand gestures to move away from Twitter, and then finding themselves needing to return. Some have completely stayed away. Some have found themselves in new places. And so we decided to engage at Dynamo, have a conversation directly about Twitter. And Erin graciously decided to said that she'd run this webinar for us and come through and present some really interesting insights around Twitter. And so, as Elon likes to do, just before we run a webinar, he decides to drop some really big news. And so it looks like we're leaving the Twitter bird behind, and we're bringing the X into play. And this seems to be quite a big part of our conversation. And so, Erin, if you're in, you can join the stage, and we'll join you into this conversation now. Erin, thank you so much for joining us. It's really great to have you here. You've been in this game for quite some time, and you have a wealth of information. I know you've been preparing for this presentation for some time, and it's almost every 3 days or so we have a conversation about something new we have to talk about, because Elon and between Elon and Facebook and Meta, they seem to just be having a war zone in here that seems to keep changing this conversation. So we're really looking forward to see what you have to present to us. So good morning and welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, it's typical. We know how this industry is. It's everything shifts and changes all the time. It's not just a Twitter phenomenon, at least. It's digital and industry wide. So cool, guys. Without further ado, welcome to Twitter 2.0, or now as we know it, X. And I'm going to today just be taking you through this playbook for activating safely on Twitter, having a deeper dive into brand safety on Twitter and what that looks like for brands. But first, before we get started, it's only right to address the elephant in the room, the rebrand from Twitter to X. So the tweets on this slide are really great testament to the fact that Twitter is really what's happening, and it's a great place to launch. In the office yesterday, it was actually quite funny. We were all speaking about the fact that all of our Twitter swag and our Twitter merch is now all going to be vintage. And then the next thing you know, someone in London actually tweeted the same thing. It was really cool to see that little Nas X and Jack Dorsey, our former CEO, actually jumped on the bandwagon too. Like Mike said, this all did happen yesterday, so I don't have any further updates or any news to really share with you, besides the fact that we do not foresee this actually affecting brands and it's obviously just business as usual. Our CEO, Linda, has also shared some great tweets about the rebrand, so if you're curious and you want some updates, please do check them out on her Twitter page. So now, let's get into the reason that you are all here. So after taking a moment, a lot of brands are coming back and they're asking a very good question. That's, what did I miss? Well, the truth is you missed a lot. You missed fun with other brands on the platform, and you missed your customers who are still here for the very same reasons that they've always been here, to see what's happening and to get some birthday shout outs from their favorite brands. You might be asking why. Well, this is because there's no other place like Twitter for brands. Brands have always found a way to make Twitter fun and really express themselves differently here. We saw this with our recent product launch announcement for longer tweets, as you can see on the screen. More importantly, brands are also coming back. Some never left, and others took some time to assess their position after last year's ownership change. More than half the brands who paused after the acquisitions are actually back up and running promoted ads on Twitter. At this year's Super Bowl, 84% of brands who advertised on TV during the big game also shared their spots and campaigns on Twitter, either promoted or organically. Like Pepsi, who was one of the most talked about brands on the night with their brave and vulnerable #ZeroDebate taste campaign. And Pixel, a fan favorite, demonstrated how relatability and emotion effectively get people talking about a product's features. The Super Bowl really showed us that Twitter is more alive than ever. We also saw a 20% increase in global tweets about the event and an 18% increase in unique tweet authors. So in other words, more tweets were made by people this year compared to last year. And it's really no surprise, with the fight to the final few minutes, a big reveal during the halftime show, and all the brands bringing their game faces on the night. It's also not just football, and it's not just on a global scale. We are seeing this across the board. People are really flocking to Twitter for all things that they love. This too has really not changed. And in December, we re-asked people what they come to Twitter to engage with. And it'll come as no surprise that the top reasons they come to the platform every day are to follow sports, movies, current events, comedies, and music. The good news for brands who are ramping back up is that now is a great time. There has been a 0% change in sentiment towards brands on Twitter post the acquisition. This is based on both organic and promoted tweets and includes mentions and replies. There's also been no statistically significant change in advertiser brand lift deltas across all the metrics, with the exception of recall, which has actually improved quite a bit since the acquisition. And finally, our auction is offering great value right now. We are seeing incredibly low CPMs. So now, with that in mind, I want to talk to you today about 3 things: what's happened, what's next, and in the future of ads on Twitter. So first, let's take a look at what brand safety looks like at Twitter 2.0, or now as we know it, X. So our ambition for Twitter is to be the most accurate information source in the world and a real global town square for everyone, a place that really transcends borders, connects people with their passions, and enables us to solve common problems and really drive civilization forward. But the only way we will achieve this is if we create a civil and brand-safe environment where people from all walks of life, regardless of where they were born or their views, feel welcome and safe to join and participate in public conversation. We also know that the safety of users and brands on Twitter is essential to achieving this goal, and we're publicly committed to that. So in Twitter 2.0, we're more committed to brand safety than we have ever been. When it comes to launching new products like Twitter Blue or long-form tweets, we've been hearing from customers that they're really impressed with just how quickly Twitter has ramped up and been shipping out new things. And the same goes for brand safety, with the launch of adjacency controls and third-party brand safety adjacency measurement. In the last 2 months, we've actually shipped more new brand safety products for our advertisers than we have in the past 3 years, and we're just getting started. So the approach to brand safety on Twitter is threefold. Before your brand's ads reaches the eyes of a user, we have 3 layers of protection and measures in place. So first, our industry partners that we work with help us to ensure that we are providing a safe environment for brands. So for example, we work with Global Alliance for Responsible Media that actually set the standards for monetization that inform our policies and our products. These partnerships help us stay on our front foot, keeping Twitter safe for brands, and they really inform much of the work that we do. So next are our policies. These policies and the 24/7 enforcement of these policies constitute the brand safety floor that we uphold for everyone and build our brand suitability features are the products on top of this foundation. Then come our products. These are the tools that you can use, like audience exclusion, adjacency controls, brand safety adjacency measurement, that really help you make sure your ads are appearing in context that aligns with your brand. And next, you have full transparency into that context. So we're going to start with the category where we get the most questions from brands. What, if anything, has changed about our brand safety policies? So something that is really top of mind for a lot of advertisers is what changes we've made to our policies that have potentially made Twitter less brand safe. So our policies are largely unchanged. There are 2 main areas of our policies that impact brands, and the first being Twitter rules. So this includes things like rules against hateful conduct, abuse, harassment, and misleading and deceptive identities. Again, these highlighted areas remain intact. So next are our policies around ad adjacency protections. So Twitter actually prevents ad placement adjacent to tweets that have been labeled as sensitive media by our Twitter service team or by the tweet's authors, including media containing graphic violence and consensually produced adult content as defined under our sensitive media policy. So this is supported by multiple layers of technology, including machine learning, and evaluating content profiles and replies to make sure that your ad is really appearing next to safe content. What has changed is that we have brought back cause-based and political ads. So with the right tools, systems, and policies in place, we'll manage and moderate political advertising on Twitter in ways similar to networks on TV, for instance. And Twitter is actually moving in total to be more in line with what you would expect to find around other parts of the internet and media landscape as far as our policies are concerned. So with that being said, while our policies are largely unchanged, we've really made two significant changes. The first is in enforcement. We're moving faster than ever to make Twitter safer by stepping up our efforts to remove bad actors. So for example, since November, we've increased the rate at which we're suspending accounts that created, distributed, or engaged with content that was sexually exploitive of children by 112%. We're also stepping up our actions across spam accounts that participate in things like abusive behavior, violence, and hateful entities, as well as accounts affiliated with such groups. It's not just about finding these bad actors, but we've also taken significant steps towards de-amplification of this content. So speaking of de-amplification, the next change is how we moderate our content. We are shifting to an approach of content de-amplification versus removal for certain kinds of content that may be widely objectionable but does not violate the law. We believe that your experience on Twitter should really mirror your experience in other parts of the internet. So unless you actively seek out unsavory content, you should not encounter it. So for example, Google search. While there is no perfect approach towards content moderation, we believe de-amplification, where we reduce the blast radius of this content by ensuring people are only exposed to it when they intentionally seek it out, is actually the most effective way to maintain the health of the platform. This aligns with a broader industry shift towards reach and prevalence as the most effective means of measuring moderation. We are also shifting to a model, like I've mentioned before, that mirrors what you expect to find in other parts of the internet. Let's take a simple Google search, for example. As we all know, we've probably experienced in one way or another that there are some really strange corners of the internet, and you can find pretty much anything you want on Google, as long as it's illegal. So why would this experience on Twitter differ? We've also seen a very positive impact as a result of this shift, and I want to share with you how we are using data to measure our success. So one notable area where we are starting to leverage de-amplification is with hate speech. When we detect a slur and determine it's like sort of being used in a negative way, so what we mean by toxic, we avoid recommending this content to most users. We may still show it to followers as well as people who seek it out, in line with our broader de-amplification strategy. Overall, impressions of tweets that contain slurs in English have stabilized and actually remain below our pre-acquisition baseline. Impressions of this content will never be zero. However, since November, since the acquisition, impressions of this content have significantly made up approximately 0.01 of all English language sort of tweet impressions on the platform. In the 2 months prior to the acquisition, this ranged from 0.02 to 0.04. So you can see that's a huge change. So to ensure that your campaigns meet an industry-leading standard for brand safety, take advantage of some or all of the available products designed to help you meet your objectives and serve the public conversation. We recently launched pre-bid adjacency controls to prevent your ads from appearing adjacent to tweets that use keywords that you would like to avoid in the home timeline. These controls work for adjacent tweets in all languages and are available globally. This is an industry-leading feature that is unique to our platform and builds on top of our long-standing suite of protections to ensure that Twitter upholds a brand safety floor for all advertisers, so demonetization of content that is unsafe for brands. The brand safety adjacency measurement offered with Double Verify and Integral Ad Science measures the prevalence of ad placement adjacent to content deemed either unsafe or unsuitable for monetization by the Global Alliance for Responsible Media in Twitter's home timeline. These measurement solutions are the first of their kind for a feed environment, and these partners have consistently shown that Twitter's brand safety floor efforts are more than 99% effective. So this additional layer of transparency really gives you more confidence that your ads appear in brand safe environments when you advertise on Twitter. And then lastly, community management tools help prevent meaningful, healthy conversations from being completely derailed by unwanted replies. So conversation settings give advertisers control over who replies to their ad, and you can even adjust these settings reactively if the nature of the conversation may change. So all three of these products are ways that we're giving you greater transparency and control over the conversations that you start on Twitter. We've also run successful beta tests with both Double Verify and Integral Ad Signs over the last several months. So through custom-built solutions for Twitter's feed environment, these tests have shown that more than 99% of measured impressions appeared adjacent to content that was deemed safe in accordance with the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. We're really proud of these results, and they have met or exceeded our beta participants' expectations. So this really is evidence that the measures we have in place are working on behalf of our advertisers to help make Twitter a brand safe environment that they can invest in without concern. We also believe that our industry really needs to work together to drive this industry-wide change, because trust and transparency go hand in hand, and the people and brands on Twitter deserve both. We are a founding member of the Global Alliance for Responsible Media and a proud industry leader in the brand safety space. So to reiterate, we are committed to the safety of your brand on Twitter. We have been laser focused on this and shipped more products in the past 2 months than we have in the past 3 years. As an advertiser, your protection comes from 3 main places. So that's policies that make your brand safe, products that make your brand safe, as well as partnerships that drive industry-wide change. So these actions help us to protect brands even better while fulfilling our purpose to serve the public conversation. So next, we want to preview what you can expect from Twitter's products in the coming months, including what's been recently shipped and what's coming next. You'll see that we are moving significantly faster, we're testing in public, and we're taking bigger swings, while being more open to feedback than ever before. So our 3 big product priorities for 2023 are the growth and engagements of Twitter's audience, maximizing reach and relevance for advertisers, and maintaining the trust and safety of brands and people. So our ambition is to have 1 billion people using Twitter globally to see and talk about what's happening every day. But to achieve this, we need to provide people with more ways to create in and create public conversations. As we improve the user experience, we'll also bolster the signals required to strengthen our full funnel advertising solution. So one of the core ways that we're innovating on the consumer product is with Twitter Blue. You guys probably have seen it all over your timelines. So this is our premium subscription service that elevates quality conversations on Twitter through a range of features, including edit tweet, bookmark folders, custom app icons, and so much more. We recently launched Blue, addressing the feedback that you and others shared, including new impersonation defenses such as phone verification, human review of key account changes, and graduated access for new accounts. So we'll touch a little bit more on verification in the last part of this presentation. But a big focus is new formats and features that accelerate Twitter's growth, with new audiences, especially including Gen Zs and creators. So for example, we've recently launched immersive video. We know that video is an increasingly large part of the public conversation on Twitter. So recently we launched Twitter's immersive media viewer that enables users who are watching video in full screen mode to simply swipe up to keep watching an endless stream of relevant content. We plan to also grow this placement across more Twitter surfaces. Then we've launched Longer Tweets, which is a Twitter Blue offering. So we want to help people create, publish, and distribute their content in a way that really feels native to Twitter and reduces the need to send users to an external site. So as of now, Twitter Blue subscribers can tweet up to 4,000 characters, and we plan to add more length to this coming soon. Then we have Reader Mode, which is also a Twitter Blue feature that turns long Twitter threads into a more beautiful reading experience. Speaking of content creators, we also really want content creators to super serve their audiences on Twitter. So we're in the stage of launching coins, which is the first step of a bigger strategy to reward those who create great content and drive the conversation. You'll be able to buy coins to award great content on Twitter, starting with tweets. That's just an example of how the immersive video looks. Okay, so let's move on to our plan to strengthen the Twitter ads product. So right now we are focused on reach and relevance, making ads on Twitter go further and work much harder. And we're excited to share with you today the significant progress that we're making in our full funnel offering. We know that performance will be critical to our success in 2023, and we're working at a pace to build a product that really grows your business in a predictable and reliable way. So we recently launched 3 new products that will drive mid to lower funnel results for advertisers and improve relevance for people on Twitter. So first is collection ads, which is it'll allow advertisers to showcase a collection of product and images through a primary hero image and multiple smaller thumbnail images below it. So this creates a really immersive and visually forward shopping experience. Then we have dynamic product ads, which allow advertisers to showcase the most relevant product to the right customer at the right time and drive sales and conversions. And lastly, we have web conversion optimization, which is a major rebuild of our conversion goal that will improve the way that advertisers reach consumers who are most likely to convert on a lower funnel website action. So these launches build off the momentum of the new and improved Twitter Pixel, Conversions API, and app purchase optimization solutions. We also understand the importance of scale in your media investments, and we're working at a pace to expand your reach on Twitter via new services, such as logged out ads. So this will extend ads to logged out guests. We also have search keyword ads, which helps advertisers with lower funnel goals serve more relevant ads by targeting people based on what they're searching. We've also recently launched vertical video ads, which is a full screen ad unit within our immersive video viewer to help advertisers further unlock the growth of video on Twitter. Perfect. And then moving on to close out Twitter's product roadmap, we want to update you on our efforts to maintain the trust and safety of brands and people on Twitter. So one of our big bets for the upcoming year is Community Notes, which was formerly known as Birdwatch. So Notes enables people like you on Twitter to write and rate notes that add context and accuracy to existing tweets. We have systems in place to ensure that notes are only published if helpful, and also ensuring that they represent a wide, diverse set of perspectives. All contributions are published daily, and our ranking algorithm can be inspected by literally anyone. So here's an instance where Elon was actually corrected by a contributor. So while Twitter's rules and policies remain largely unchanged, we want to provide transparency into key policy updates. So account amnesty. We've identified several policies where permanent suspension was a disappropriate action for breaking Twitter rules. As a result, we have proactively reinstated accounts that fall into this category. However, we have not and won't reinstate accounts that engaged in illegal activity, threats of harm or violence, large-scale spam and platform manipulation, or where there was no recent appeal to have the account reinstated. Anyone can also appeal an account suspension and be evaluated under our new criteria for reinstatement. Then we have freedom of speech, not reach. So related to reinstatement, our enforcement approach is actually changing to ensure that we are enforcing based on our goal of freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. So to be clear, harmful content such as violent speech and illegal content, non-consensual nudity, or posting private information will still be removed, and suspension will continue for these bad actors. However, for users who post content that violates some of our policies, rather than removing the violative content, we will limit its reach and inform users of our visibility-filtered enforcement action taken. This approach will make Twitter consistent with your experience in other parts of the internet, where unless you actively seek out unsavory content, you should not encounter it. And as previously mentioned and discussed earlier in the presentation, we have also launched pre-bid adjacency controls, and here's how they work. You simply input your keyword exclusion before you launch your campaign. As also mentioned, we now offer more transparency into the context where your ads are served with double verify and integral ad signs. And finally, we want to talk about Twitter's verification strategy. We want people, brands, and governments to be able to identify and express themselves on Twitter. We really believe that this approach will help with our ongoing efforts to reduce fraudulent accounts and bots. We covered Twitter Blue earlier, and additionally, managed advertiser accounts now display a designated gold checkmark and a square avatar, while government handles display a gray checkmark. We've heard this misconception a lot, that brands should be subscribing to Twitter Blue, and that is a false conception. Brands should always have a gold tick so that they are easily identified, and people with blue tick and governments a gray tick. If you also work with our Dynamo and you run your Twitter campaigns through us, we have a minimum spend criteria where if you spend that per month, you'll get a complimentary gold check mark. You won't actually have to subscribe to Twitter Blue or verified organizations. So speaking of verified organizations, we have recently launched this and have rolled it out. And this aims to provide businesses with a trusted service unlike any other on the internet to communicate directly with your customers, followers, or your fans. So at launch, verified organizations will have the following features: gold check marks for organization accounts, the ability to verify accounts associated with your organization, a self-serve verification management tool, and all the features of our consumer offering, including Twitter Blue, longer tweets, and longer video upload. And here is a quick summary of what Q1 looked like in 2023 across all of our 3 big product priorities. So as you can see, we are really working at a pace to deliver growth and engagement of Twitter's audience. So we are providing more ways for people and brands to participate and create, reach and relevance for advertisers, making ads on Twitter go further and work harder, and maintaining the trust and safety of people and brands. Okay, enough talking from us. We want to hear from you. What product areas would you like to learn more about or go deeper into? But thank you everyone for listening. That's all from me, and I believe we'll go into questions now.
Yep. Thanks so much, Erin. So Erin's put that question out, so feel free to hit the chat with product areas and questions that you may have for now. So if you can drop those into the chat, we're happy to start picking those up. Erin, just to kick things off, what I'm hearing from your presentation is quite interesting. So there's a lot of the press picks up a lot on Elon's more dramatic side, the quick changes that he makes, what seemingly seems like big sort of drastic decisions at the drop of a hat. These big dramatic statements, they cause lots of waves. He tends to do them on a platform, and they cause a lot of problems. They cause these big motions. And I think the size of Twitter, the size of his business empires as well, tend to create these big waves. But what you've outlined here is interesting to me, because what you've focused on is the brand platform itself and the volume of updates that have taken place. I mean, you've outlined a wide range of safety updates, product updates, ad format updates. It's impressive, especially one of those last slides we just showed, like the first quarter of changes. The amount of product updates alone is an impressive rollout. And I think we forget in all of this seemingly erratic behavior that comes from Elon Musk is that we forget that one thing he is good at is change management, and he moves and he creates momentum around all the businesses that he's a part of. It's one of his main skill sets. And so we can see that with the amount of change that you've kind of unpacked here. But the big thing for me is that perception is very often a person's reality. And so the actions that you have with a group CEO like this surely has an impact on the way that people see these platforms. So my question is that how has the South African Twitter user responded to the platform as a whole? As brands, we tend to look at how the international markets are responding and how the international brands are responding, and we tend to almost copycat that to a degree, and especially when we jump on things like hype, which we know that these platforms are very good at jumping on and using against us. But the South African consumer tends to operate a little bit differently at times. So I'm really interested to hear, has the Twitter platform in South Africa suffered, and what does that look like today?
100%. Great question there, Mike. I think the most important thing as well is, like you mentioned, I think a lot of people follow the international sort of ways that things are working from a digital landscape perspective. Throughout the whole acquisition with Elon, we obviously had a whole bunch of advertisers coming to us. Is it brand safe? What's going on? These brands overseas have been pausing. We've now been told as a global directive, we need to pause. Like, what do we do? And for South Africa, it was a very different experience because we're not really that affected by it. The South African audience is very unique and very different in that way. So the interesting thing is that we've actually seen year on year since the acquisition, a 13% increase in conversation on the Twitter platform and a 19% increase in platform usage in a South African context. So I think that just really goes to sort of show how the South African audience really is different. They don't have this like sheep-like mentality, and they want to see what people and brands are doing. And I think the curiosity of where would Elon take Twitter eventually one day was, you can't miss that.
So just if we look at it from a platform usage perspective, are you seeing the same level of engagement? Are you seeing what is actually taking place? Like rand for rand, spend for spend. Is it how does I get that like people are like excited to kind of like see what's going to happen, but it's not for a brand strategy to work. It's not so much about people being there to understand what the platform's doing and what's happening there. For a brand strategy to work, we need to know that we can work with consumers who are there for the brand. What's that consumer there doing? Is it a platform that is still valuable for the brand at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And specifically when we look at like actual campaigns and results and CPXs, we're seeing an incredible uplift in our results and a massive decrease in our CPMs. We're recording CPMs at the moment as low as under 10 Rand, which in my almost 3 years working at Twitter, I've never seen before. So it also just goes to show that people are coming to Twitter, and especially for brands, now is the right time.
I'm assuming that has a lot to do with just the fact that they're doing a lot to drop a lot of bot impressions, and like just the fact that the perspective of the user base is now dropping because of the amount of automation that has been stripped out of the system.
Yes, 100%. That's also Elon and the Twitter platform. I'm sure you may have seen where we had that rate limit, the tweet limit, where you could only maybe see up to 300 or 600 tweets in a day per user. So that was exactly what Elon was doing there, and Twitter as a whole is removing bots and making sure that it's not kind of generating towards people's campaigns and brands' campaigns. We want to really make sure that it is real people, real eyeballs, real impressions. And yeah, we've seen since that's been taken away now and it was successful, really, really great campaign results.
Okay, so here's a challenge though, is that brands and clients and customers in the space are used to seeing really fantastic impression results and engagement results on their campaigns. If your essential user base is more human and has been and the numbers essentially are dropping, but we're talking about a more real base, the numbers at the end of the day are going to be smaller, are they not?
Well, no. Well, we actually haven't seen that. That's the interesting thing. And I think that's what a lot of brands expected to see. But I think especially the testament to the fact that we are seeing such low CPMs and our results have such a high jump. It just goes to show that people are flocking to Twitter, and the user base really, really has increased. I think that is also due to Threads, which we can touch on a later stage, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, you said let's touch on at a later stage, but I mean, you've brought it up. So Threads came in like 2.5 weeks ago. Touted a 100 million user base, and came in, and around the same time, Twitter announced their 600 limitation on users, and so there was a huge shift across that conversation. And so we saw a lot of people leaving Twitter to head into Threads. The conversation has been quite a real one. I'm interested to hear what the experience has been from Twitter's perspective.
Awesome. Interesting thing that you said there is that people were leaving Twitter, actually totally opposite to what we were seeing. Threads was actually trending on Twitter, which again, goes to show people are coming to Twitter to see what's happening in the world. And I think further to that as well, what we have seen is, Threads launched, it was this huge hype, this new platform. Everyone was like, what is it about? Maybe people who haven't been on Twitter for 11 years like I have and want to have a similar experience, but feel like it's maybe too late to jump on the Twitter bandwagon. Maybe that was a platform for them to try out. What we have seen since is there's actually been a 75% traffic decrease in Threads. And that obviously means for Twitter that people are coming to Twitter. So that's something that we've seen is a 3.5% increase in our usage week over week as well.
So you're seeing an increase in usage. What about your user base is already so big. But has there been an increase in your user base? Has Threads created a new market at all?
Yeah, 100%. That 3.5% increase is increase in our user base for sure.
It's a user base, so it's not old users coming back into the mix.
No, we actually didn't see a decrease. That's the crazy thing. I think when it comes to Twitter and Threads, I think people maybe were downloading Threads and testing it out, seeing what the hype is about, seeing what this platform can offer for them, for their personal brands, for their actual brands and their advertising. And then I think they came to realize that there's something super special about Twitter. And so if they did come from Twitter to Threads, it's that they probably just returned, but they never actually left Twitter. That's why Threads was trending on Twitter.
It's that whole attitude. You realize what you're missing when you go and try something else, eh? I know when we did our research around it and when we started doing tests around Threads, technically Threads is lacking in so many different ways. And so while I think it's a product that Meta could use in various different ways, especially to kind of bolster it from a future perspective, I don't think that it's necessarily a technology that's going to compete much, especially not in its current state. And its adoption rates over the last week or so have kind of shown that. It'll be interesting to see what happens over time. I mean, if they can't get those adoption rates to increase from there, it's really much a kind of an egg on face type of PR move in many ways. And the Threads movement very much was driven internationally. Was that a movement that you saw take place in South Africa? Do you know how much that conversation was being driven in SA?
I wouldn't have stats or anything to give you, but from my personal experience on the internet, it was definitely huge hype. I mean, I saw a whole bunch of people downloading. I think the thing with Threads that is particularly interesting is that it can speak really well and integrate really well into Instagram. And I think that's the main attraction at this point for Threads. At this point, like you mentioned, there are some things that Threads lacks. It's almost, in a way, a direct copy of Twitter, but not so much with the audience. And that's where Twitter remains very, very special because of our receptive audience. And so what we saw with Threads and what we see with Threads is there's some features that are the heartbeat of Twitter that is totally not included on Threads. So for example, the trending page, where you can go and you can see trending hashtags for the day, trending brand hashtags for the day. I mean, it's not really a place where you'll be able to kind of keep up with what's happening. I mean, who really knows at this point? All we know at this moment is that Threads is not currently offering advertising. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see what that looks like when it does.
Okay, now you said something there that I think is really interesting. So, and I'm going to use that to segue into the next question that I have for you. So you mentioned that Twitter has something that Threads didn't have, and I think possibly by association, you're suggesting that the Meta doesn't, and that is a receptive audience. And my question to you is the South African Twitter culture, and like what would you say differentiates that, and why would you say that Twitter's social platform and its audience is more receptive than, say, other platforms?
Yeah, great question there. I think the most important point, like I mentioned previously, is the receptive audience. And what I mean by that is when people are coming to Twitter, it's not that they're coming to Twitter to passively scroll and see what's happening. They are coming to Twitter to see what's happening with brands around the world. They're coming to Twitter to learn and discover new things and share them with their friends and their family. And the interesting thing with that kind of behavior is that we've actually seen it largely from a shopping point in 2023. So what I mean by that is these behaviors have always been a Twitter audience sort of, it's how we behave on Twitter. But what we've seen is that people are more so now in 2023, and I think it's also thanks to post-COVID, coming to Twitter to share their shopping experience. So we've actually seen that the shopping conversation on Twitter really mirrors the normal shopping conversation that you see in normal life shopping. So all the way from like reviewing the product to making the purchase to sharing it with friends and family, we're seeing that exact sort of cycle mirror on the Twitter platform. We've also seen that impressions on shopping related tweets are 2.5 more times impressions than just normal tweets. And I think that also really speaks to the opportunity there for a brand on Twitter. Because of this receptive audience in South Africa on Twitter, you really have a unique opportunity to connect with your audience. And it also goes to sort of lead me into our next point of Twitter. We are known for our 3 superpowers. So launching your brand messaging. I don't just mean a huge rebrand. It can be anything from new packaging, a new menu item. Launching something new on Twitter is where you are going to see incredible success, connecting with what's happening. Like I said, this receptive audience, they're not just coming there to passively scroll. They're coming there to see during these big Super Bowl moments, the Rugby World Cup 2023 moments, all these moments, what are brands doing? They want to see what brands are doing, because we've also seen that there's a direct correlation between brands who are seen as culturally relevant on Twitter and your sales. So I think it's actually a 73% correlation. We've also seen that there's a correlation. If you have a 10% increase in your conversation on Twitter, you'll see a 3% increase in your sales. So again, that just really speaks to the receptivity of the South African audience on Twitter.
Okay, so just the 3 superpowers were launch, connecting, and?
Sorry, I didn't get to the third one, driving people to buy. So that's where the shopping conversation comes in. So because you are launching and you are connecting, you off the back of that naturally drive people to buy on Twitter.
Okay, so you're saying it's launch, connection, and conversion, basically.
Yeah.
So for brands, Twitter. So for a lot of social media, the sort of the power play is this is your connection point to your customer, and the play, in a sense, is very customer service driven, and it is to a degree campaign orientated from a point of view of the awareness conversation. So what you're saying here is that Twitter's superpowers sit more with the awareness and the conversion functions, not so much so with the customer service engagement space on that side.
So no, we would sit in all of it. And I think that's the power of Twitter, is that you can launch with your awareness, you can connect with your engagement to your customer base, and then you can drive people to buy with that lower funnel conversion. And the interesting thing is that Twitter has always been known as, oh, well, it's a great place for consideration. It's a great place to engage with our audience. But, you know, our main KPI maybe is awareness or conversion. And we don't feel as though Twitter plays too well into that space. And the thing is, and especially with awareness, if you're comparing it to the likes of any other platform, you can take Meta, for example. Of course, that reach and that sort of net that you're casting for those platforms are going to be much wider because the audience base is much higher. However, I think the difference in the USP for Twitter comes in that receptive audience. So they are there. They're not just passively scrolling. They want to hear from your brands. And then, so also driving people to buy. That lower sort of funnel thing. You know, Twitter has also, hasn't always been the best at the lower funnel sort of things. And since the acquisition, and this is something that I've particularly absolutely loved about Elon's takeover, is the hardcore like sort of drive to performance and these lower funnel actions. Because I know if I'm going to tell my brand they need to be on Twitter, they're going to say, but what's my ROI? How do I know that this is a good and valuable place for me to invest? And I think that's where these performance come like ad units come in. And we've seen really, really great uptake. We've launched a new pixel. We've launched Cappy. So just making sure that you are able to, along each stage of the funnel, whether it's awareness, engagements, or conversion, be able to actually track your audience and seeing what they're doing.
Super, super interesting. Thanks. Feel free to drop any questions up on the chat if you've got any. We'll fly them through. Otherwise, we'll keep going on this end. So if I was to ask this again, focusing on an South Africa context, if we're looking at brands themselves today, post-Elon, where are the big success points that you're finding brands working?
Yeah, very good question there. And it definitely speaks into my previous point. And I think it's been a very interesting transition for most brands, because they've always had this idea of Twitter. Oh, Twitter's maybe a little bit more political. Oh, Twitter's maybe, it's a bit negative for us, or Twitter doesn't work very well in the awareness or the conversion space. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment, and it's been a lot of education in that sense to brands. And I think the main point that I want to get out of this session to everyone on the call, if there's one thing you can take away, it's definitely that Twitter is a full funnel offering, whether it's launching, connecting, or driving people to buy. To your question, Mike, I think specifically what we've seen brands do is, because this whole performance thing is so new, they were maybe on Twitter with just engagements, but on the likes of a Meta platform, they were focusing on those lower funnel conversions, that ROI, and seeing what that looks like. So now that Twitter has this capability, that's definitely where we see most of our campaigns at the moment. This is what brands are really focusing on, is that lower funnel sort of performance offering.
And is that just because it's new, or is it because it's where Twitter performs now? I mean, because we tend to gravitate to what's new in the ad space, and so that's the next thing that we're selling. The things that Twitter was good at, do you see it kind of leveling out? What would that strategy look like?
Yeah, I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. I think, and this is also something that I think brands need to start being a little bit more brave in that sense, is, okay, we will be happy to chase performance, but we need to see what other brands have done. Or maybe we want to see some case studies to see that it's worked. But the whole point of a new product or a new offering is to go in and test the performance. So we'll say for sure that I've been seeing a lot of testing happening, but off the back of that testing, absolutely incredible results. We've seen, obviously, through my presentation, that a lot of brands who did pause during, before, after the acquisition are more than 50% of them have actually returned to Twitter. And it's just really about being brave and testing these new products and these new offerings. But we have seen really, really great performance. And I think also because it's kind of similar to what they would be doing on the likes of other platforms. So now, instead of having to diversify their objectives on Twitter, they could make sure that they have a full funnel sort of media mix across all platforms.
Okay, so and this is going to be, I think, so you mentioned earlier that in your presentation that, there were some big moves that were made with sort of pushing back against political organizations, and now that's sort of coming back. The question that very often happens around Twitter, and this happens a lot in South Africa, especially with brands that aren't quite engaged in Twitter, one of the biggest warnings, in a sense, for brands asking agencies about stepping into Twitter will be around things like the political nature, kind of understanding the dynamics of Twitter and the uniqueness of that community. and the potential to kind of get on the wrong side of people. There's this negative aspect where you can kind of get burnt a bit. Not so much by the platform, but by the people in the platform. And there's this political nature which can kind of be driven. So there's this, I don't know if woke is the right word, but there's this feeling that you can kind of get on the wrong side of people, and there's this need to kind of either conform or speak into a particular way. How true is that? How should brands be performing and be aware of these conversations? What should we be thinking about when it comes to this? I mean, we spoke about culture, about them being receptive, but there is this undertone, this underbelly, this sort of groundswell that tends to sit there that people are concerned about.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing there is, and specifically in a South African context, is that actually only 28%, political sort of tweet volume only makes up 28% of our total tweet volume. So it's a very, very, very small amount. The other 72% sits within our communities and our passion points. So on Twitter, we see people, wherever there's like something that they can be passionate about, it's going to make up some of that tweet volume. So all the way from finance Twitter, beauty Twitter, TV Twitter. I mean, I know that when I'm watching a new reality TV show, which I absolutely love, the first thing I'm doing is either during or after, I'm going to go and search the hashtag, and I'm going to go see what people are talking about. And that speaks to people's passion points. It also speaks really nicely into we have another product called Twitter Amplify, which speaks really well into the second screening behavior. And I think especially during COVID, what we saw a lot is that people never left their phones. So you're watching TV, but you have your phone on you. So we have a product called Twitter Amplify, where you can actually run your brand's pre-roll in front of a premium publisher partner's pre-roll. So Mzansi, Mnet, things like that. And yeah, so we're definitely seeing like a huge second screening sort of thing going on. But yeah, to answer your question, Mike, it would definitely be the passion points, the communities make up most of the tweet volume. But we also really advise our clients not to run away from those negativities when they happen. So face it head on, show the people in the comments that you as your brand see this person, you hear this person, and you're working towards a resolution with this person. People like to see that brands aren't running away. We also have a brilliant crisis management deck, which I'm happy to share to anyone after this call. Please feel free to reach out to me. But biggest advice is don't run away from it. Know your brand personality, know the tone of voice your brand is meant to be using, and just stay true to your brand. We often find that a lot of brands will try to hop on bandwagons, trends, things that maybe don't necessarily have a great fit towards their brand personality. And that's where we see sometimes there's a little bit of an attack there that happens. So yeah, those will be my takeaways.
Well, Erin, we've got 2 minutes left, so I just want to take that time to say thank you very much for the time that you've afforded us. I know that it takes a lot to prepare a presentation like this, and your presentation was power-packed with some very hard-hitting information. If I was to try and sum up this conversation, what I can sort of bring to light is that there's since the Elon takeover, we've kind of seen this nice big focus on massive product rollout with brand safety and formats and spam reduction, which I think has been a big thing that brands need to really understand is good for them. And it's really helped build out this big focus on your receptive audience and really hone in on that for brands. And so brands can be assured that that receptive audience is stronger and better than it has been before. And that in that receptive audience, a lot of these products that you're now building in allow them to focus on lower funnel in the conversion or ROI space. And then you just dropped in right at the end there, which I think is something that people need to know about. And I know that one of your partner companies also do this, but you dropped right in the end there. The big keyword that everyone's throwing around is omnichannel, and how do we engage like that? But technology partnerships with Twitter right now are possible in South Africa with dual screening through your Twitter Amplify program. And I also know that you have partnerships with the likes of Blue Robot that allow you to be able to do omnichannel across other social platforms as well. So I do think that what you've really shown us today is that Twitter is alive and strong if brands are willing to engage. So thank you very much. I think it's really impressive what you've been able to do. And let's hope that Elon doesn't give you too much of a hard time on the PR front. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you everyone for listening. As always, reach out if you need anything. Yeah, Mike, really enjoyed co-hosting this with you. So thank you very much, and to Natasha.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to drop those notes in the chat. We'll touch base with you on mail after this with copies of the decks. And if you need anything else, please let us know. If you would like us to cover any other topics in our webinars in the future, please just drop us a line and we'll do our best to bring them up in the future. So thanks a lot. Have a great week, and we'll chat to you soon. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.